Hi, I'm Tom Loucks, Wisconsin Rapids Community Media Coordinator for the City of Wisconsin Rapids, and this is Get to Know Your City, and I'm going to welcome my guests here today, and they're from the League of Women Voters of the Wisconsin Rapids area. I have Gloria Kubishak and Leo Tomsgaard today, and we're going to talk about the National Voter Registration Day, which is September 26th. That's just right around the corner, and you guys are watching this. A lot of great information we're going to share. I'm going to turn it right over to them. They're going to introduce themselves, so we'll go with Gloria here first as introductions.
Well, thank you, Tom. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters, we want to say we really appreciate having the time to speak to the public about the importance of voting and certainly registering to vote, because you can't do one without doing the other. And the one is the very first step. As you introduced us, I am a League member and have been for about the last 10 or 12 years. Born and raised here in Wisconsin Rapids, this is hometown, had lived away and worked in education for many years in several other places, but then returned here to finish out my career. And it's wonderful to be here and wonderful to simply encourage the public, which is the goal of the League of Women Voters, to become civically engaged and very definitely take your place as a citizen as a very serious role, because it makes all the difference, not only in local politics, but certainly in national politics. And so I'll turn it over to Leo at this point.
Okay, thank you. My name's Leo Tomsgaard. I'm a native of Plover. I moved to Port Edwards in 1976. I worked in the Nakusa Public Schools for 34 years. Retired a few years back. My wife had been a League member for many years. I've always been a political animal, and I saw the good work that the League was doing and decided that maybe this was a vehicle that would allow me an opportunity to serve in a different capacity. Men have been eligible to belong to the League since 1973. The League of Women Voters began almost 100 years ago with the passage of the 19th Amendment. The League began in 1920, and it was originally a vehicle for educating and giving women an opportunity to learn the responsibilities of voting and citizenship that the amendment to the Constitution giving them the vote as a result of the women's suffrage movement provided. So Gloria mentioned the idea of engagement in politics. Politics has had a bad rap for a long time. Politicians and politics, it's the mention of the word turns a lot of people off. But if you go to the big thick dictionary and you look at the definitions that politics has, among them is the total complexity of relationships between people living in a society. The key to that, the key to your having access to this set of systems that involves you, whether you wanted to or not, is being registered to vote. If you don't vote, and when the League does informational or registration events at like the Cranberry Blossom Festival or the Grand Affair, people will come up to us when we're sitting at a table or passing out literature on the street and say, we will ask them, are you registered to vote? And they'll, oh, I don't vote. Well, why not? And the usual litany of excuses comes up. I don't like any of the candidates. I don't know the issues. My spouse canceled out my vote. I'm not interested. I'm too busy. I mean, the list runs on forever. If you absent yourself from that process, you turn over control of what happens to the people who do participate. If in the last election, the presidential election last fall, about just shy of 70% of Wisconsin's eligible voters cast ballots. By estimates of both CBS News and the Associated Press, that's a 20-year low for voter involvement in Wisconsin. Traditionally, we do a really good job here of turning out for elections. If you have, I'll do a mathematical example. If you have 100 voters who are eligible to vote, in a typical primary election, about 10% vote. So you have 10 out of 100 people casting a ballot. That means that, given majority rule, 6 of those 10 people will prevail. So now you have a population of 100 people who have stood back and allowed 6 of them to dictate what happens. It's no wonder people are unhappy, but they're not serving their own best interests by not participating in the process.
Great. It's so important to get out and vote. And you guys,
absolutely.
League of Women Voters, Wisconsin Rapids area, well, any League of Women Voters, really help provide that information for the citizens. There's a lot of stuff out there, and we're going to go through a lot today. And since it's National Voter Registration Day on the 26th, you guys are a big part of want to celebrate that. So I guess what I'm going to do is turn it right over to you, Gloria, and explain what the day is about and how it came about.
Well, how it came about actually is it's an initiative that the National Associations of Secretary of States and National Association of Election Officials had promoted. And it started in about 2012, so it's quite new. But the object is obvious. The object is raise awareness among the public, making them just so conscious of the fact that in order to vote, in order to be part of that process, you just simply need to register first. You can't do, as I said in the introduction, one without the other. There are numerous nonprofit organizations that are part of this initiative that will take place next week on the 26th of September. It's always the 4th Tuesday in September. YWCA, United Way, Youth Alliance, Envision, even Facebook is part of this whole thing, League of Women Voters, of course, as well. But since they started this, actual statistics show that they have, and this is nationwide now, we're talking all the states, that more than a million people have actually registered. And that much earlier than an election is going to take place, which is just terrific.
That's great.
Yep.
It's so important. Like I said earlier before this question is, this day is just another way to get people ready for the fall election,
Correct.
Spring election, get
Spring election.
Spring election. I mean, there's no local election here this fall that we
That's
have,
right.
But it just gets you thinking about it, which is great. So
Yep.
let's talk about requirements to vote. You just can't go and vote. You have to have some requirements. Leo, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's also important to point out that we have election cycles that are more frequent than just every 4 years. A lot of people only vote in the presidential elections, but the next chance they're going to have is going to be the spring primary here in Wisconsin next February. You have to be 18, and unlike some states that will allow you to do things a little early, you have to be 18. You can't be. It can't be the week after. It's got to be 18 on the day of the election. You have to have lived at your current address for at least 10 days, and you have to be registered.
That's it.
That's it.
And you have to be a U.S. citizen.
And a U.S. citizen, obviously.
Right. And you cannot be a felon who has not served their sentence. In other words, you can't be on paper, whether it's parole or probation. That has to be complete. You have to be off paper, as the justice system calls it. So yes, those are Simple as that.
Well, how do you go and register then to vote once you're able at the age of 18?
Well, Tom, that's one of the other reasons that Leo and I thought it would be important to talk to the public about this, because the state of Wisconsin has just initiated a brand new program whereby people can register to vote online. That's all they need to do is go to myvote.wi.gov for government, obviously. And that's something new that just started several months ago. And that's an absolutely excellent source. You not only can register to vote on there as long as you can prove that your current residence is your residence, and what you need is a valid, unexpired driver's license to do that. And you fill out that form, and that takes care of it for you. So as simple as an iPhone or an Android, especially if the public who is listening to this has grandchildren or children who are just turning 18, those young people are so savvy with technology. This is just a real boon for them to be able to just do it from the phone that they seem to be on constantly anyway. So, do it. That's the place to be able to do it. Now, there are 3 other ways in which you can register to vote. You can also register to vote by mail, and you can do that by simply calling your municipal clerk's office and getting the form. You can go again to that government, MyVote, Wisconsin, WI.gov. You can download a form there and fill it out and send it in the mail. You do have to have proof of residency. So with that form, you've got to include a photocopy of your driver's license, a photocopy of something that proves your residency, whether it's a Wisconsin ID card. There are several that you can use. So you can go online to do it. You can do it by mail. You can also just simply go down here to Wisconsin Rapids City Hall, go to Paul Shabilsky, our city clerk's office. You can register in person. Take ID as well, because again, you're going to have to prove where you live. And the 4th means by which you can do this is to register on the day of election. Poll workers, city clerks, municipal clerks are not going to encourage that. We don't encourage that either, because the lines can be very long. It will take you a good deal of time to get through the process. You're filling out forms, you've got to prove your residency again. But it's perfectly okay to do that. So in summary, you can do it online, you can do it by mail, you can walk into the clerk's office and do it right there in person, or you can do it in person on election day. Simple as that. Really no reason why people shouldn't register to vote. And remember, it's registering to vote online. You cannot vote online. You can only register to vote online.
Right, yeah, that is a difference. So
yes, people need to understand that you can't vote online.
Yep, you need to register before you can vote, and that's a whole different process. Yeah. So there's no excuse. There's 4 ways here.
That's right. Pretty simple.
Pretty simple. So, oh, wow. If you're just joining us here on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, this is Get to Know Your City. And today my guests are from the League of Women Voters of the Wisconsin Rapids area. And Leo Tomsgaard is here, as well as Gloria Kubishak. And we're learning a lot about National Voter Registration Day. It's taking place on September 26th, a Tuesday. With that, we're talking about everything you need to know about how to vote and when you register for this upcoming spring election. We're already talking about spring. Before you know it, the winter's going to be here. So I wanted to welcome those 2 here today. And we're going to go on to our next question about deadlines of doing all this. And Leo, you're going to talk to me about when people have to get this done by.
The website that Gloria just gave, the myvote.wi.gov, is the easiest and most accessible for most people who have internet access. You can register to vote on that website up to 20 days before the election. You can also register by mail 20 days before the election. Or, as she said, you can go in person. anytime to your local clerk. If you don't live in the city of Wisconsin Rapids, then it would be your city or village or township clerk in whatever office they maintain. And that information is also available online. You can do that until the Friday before the election. Or you can register at the polls. So the only time that you're really shut out of the process is that Saturday, Sunday, Monday before the election, where you can't go into the clerk and the mail and online process is not available to you. So those are so basically any time now prior to the February primary.
Okay, so if you moved or you haven't registered, you can go online now, you're telling me, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
can do it today.
Do it today. If you see
Do it
this
right now.
program, you can do it right now.
24, if you're doing the online version, you can do that 24/7.
That's right.
But you can always go in, if you don't, say you don't have online, you can always go to your municipal court, or clerk. Excuse me, court,
Right.
and they can help you get set up.
Yeah.
Now, you're telling me that this cannot be done the day of election, is that, am I understanding?
Online,
that?
you mean?
Online.
Absolutely no.
No.
No, 20 days before, just
when-
like the mail.
But when you go, if you're not registered, you can still register at the polling site, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
The day
so,
of election.
So day of elections, just in case there's a mix-up, you can go there. I know there's a separate line usually. You do that before you get into the line to actually get your vote.
That's correct.
Yep. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the next question here. Are any times that you have to re-register if you've already registered?
You know, that's an interesting question, Tom, because a lot of people don't realize that step. If you change your name, you get married, or let's say you get divorced, you take your maiden name back, you have to re-register because your personal identification is what allows you to vote. So that would be a case where somebody would have to re-register. Another time you'd have to re-register is if you moved, and if that move was 10 days out from the election. In other words, if you're 10 days within that election in that moving time, then you would go to your old polling place. But otherwise, you've got to re-register. And for people who have served time for a felony, basically they will have to re-register too, as I mentioned earlier, when they are off paper, according to the Justice Department. So yes, there are times when you definitely have to re-register.
Leo, when we go to the voting place, I always forget, your ward or where you're
yes.
headed.
That's so typical.
You can't remember, but we really should know that because that's how you contact your alderperson or trustee. But it's all different in every community and how that works. But our next question is how do you find out maybe what's on a ballot? You don't want to get there and you don't know what's on the ballot, right? It's kind of nice to know ahead of time. You're able to do that, I believe. And how do you do that?
Go to the same website, myvotewisconsin.gov, or you can call your municipal clerk again. Those numbers are listed on the Wood County website, or on many local municipalities have their own website, or many times they're still even in the phone book if you use one or have access to it. Once you're registered to vote, your information is recorded in the system maintained by the Wisconsin Election Commission. Whether you register by mail, in person, or online, you get a confirmation of that registration in the form of a postcard. That postcard will come to the address that you listed in your record, and that will contain the name and address of the polling place that's appropriate for whatever municipality and ward or precinct or district that you happen to be in. You're then added to the polling book list that the election clerks maintain at the polling place. If you voted, you remember you have to sign in. That's the ledger, that's the log that the Wisconsin Election Commission creates for purposes of verifying your identity. Make sure that when you do go to vote, after you register, you have to take a photo ID that's appropriate with you.
So bring all that stuff with you the day of election. Well, that's going to lead us right into our next question here. When are the elections? Earlier we said there's no fall, so go ahead, Gloria. When are they?
Well, even though people are still coming off a presidential election last November, we are looking at more elections in the spring of the year. In fact, just 22 weeks away or 5 months away, however you want to calculate it. And that would be in February. We will have a primary. That primary will be for the April election, which is basically a lot of local elected positions. And then we will have next fall another important election. We'll have a partisan primary on August 14th, and then on November 6th, the fall election for a lot of state offices, including governor.
Can you explain a little bit what you mean by partisan primary to our viewers?
Sure. Partisan primary basically means that when you fill in your ballot, you fill it in as a member of one of the parties, and then you can only vote for a person in that particular party. But remember, that's primary. That's not the final election. Let's say that we have 10 people running for the governor of the state of Illinois, 5 of whom are Democrat, 5 of whom are Republican, or maybe a mixture. There might even be some other parties mixed in there. You can only vote basically in that column, and that determines whoever gets the most votes then will be the one who is running against the incumbent. So. Or no, I shouldn't say it that way. It's not the incumbent. It's whatever two get the most votes, period.
The leading vote
that will be on the ballot for governor.
Oh, yes, correct. Well, let's talk about what is going to be on the ballot, and this would be for April 3rd's election, Leo.
Well, the upcoming 2018 election cycle shows signs of being very busy and very full. Spring elections in Wisconsin are traditionally local elections with some state constitutional offices thrown in addition. In February and then in April, we will have the primary and the general election for a Wisconsin Supreme Court justice, circuit and Court of Appeals judges. The judicial elections are always in the spring. And then all the local officials are elected in the spring. The mayor, the village presidents, the town chairman, the council members, the boards of trustees or town boards, if you're in a village or a township, and then the elected municipal officials, if your community has them. In Wisconsin Rapids, that would be the city attorney, the city clerk. Some municipalities have moved in recent years to make some of these offices appointive rather than elective, but it varies according to what municipality you live in. For example, in the city of Wisconsin Rapids, this coming February/April election cycle, we're going to elect all of the even-numbered aldermanic districts. And then also every 2 years in the spring, all 19 Wood County Board Supervisors are also up for election.
Yes,
they serve a 2-year term. As far as the fall election goes, you'll have an August primary and then a November 6th general election. The governor's office is up for election. The attorney general is up for election, as is the state treasurer and secretary of state. We have a U.S. senator who serves a 6-year term. That's Tammy Baldwin's seat is up for re-election, as are all 8 of the Wisconsin members of the Wisconsin House delegation. Wood County is in kind of a peculiar situation, as are several other counties in the state, because the redistricting that was done after the 2010 census split Wood County in half. The eastern half of Wood County is in the 3rd congressional district, currently represented by Ron Kind, and the west half of Wood County, Marshfield and the communities to the west, are represented by Sean Duffy in the 7th district. So we're kind of right on the cusp of districts meeting. Immediately south of us, if you live in the town of Rome or Adams or Washoe counties, then you're in the 6th congressional district, represented by Glenn Grothman. So within a 20 or 30 mile circle of Wisconsin Rapids, you could run into potentially 3 completely different congressional districts represented by different people of different political parties. Also in the fall, all 99 members of the Wisconsin Assembly are up for election, and the odd numbered seats in the Wisconsin State Senate. In Wisconsin, just like in the national government, the Assembly or lower house serve 2-year terms and are elected every 2 years. Everybody gets reelected, is up for election. In the Wisconsin State Senate, each Wisconsin State Senate district is made up of 3 assembly districts. We're in the 24th district here, and Mr. Teston was just elected to that seat in 2016, so he will not be up for election. But the 23rd, the 25th, the 27th, and so on, the odd-numbered seats in other parts of the state, the state Senate seats will be up in the fall of or in November of 2018 as well. There are also county offices that were not elected in the spring, such as sheriff, coroner, clerk of courts. Those are also fall election offices.
I can see why you might need a political degree to know all this. That's a lot of stuff, and you guys really have narrowed this down great for our viewers here. Really appreciate that. That helps a lot. Yeah, but just keep in mind to our viewers that you guys are going to be welcome back, and we'll be doing forums here.
Yes, we
and
will.
Hopefully invite some of these candidates here to
Definitely.
our station for early primary. So
Yes.
look forward to that. We'll let you guys know when that is happening, and maybe we'll do a show before then too, invite you as well as any other League of Women Voters, just tell them about the program. That's very informative. It gives a chance to hear their voice, and you as viewers can call in, don't even have to come here. So we encourage that. So that's a good piece I just wanted to say. And let's go, Gloria, right into where do people vote? I know in Wisconsin Rapids there were some changes at the last voting cycle.
There were changes, and as the Wisconsin Rapids city residents know, we now vote in 2 places, and they are no longer the schools, which was the common place to vote. Now voters are either voting at Centralia Center, or they are voting at what was Woodlands Church and now is called Crossview Church. Paul Shabilsky just reminded me about that name change, and we want to make sure that people are not confused. It is not a new location. It is the same location on the east side of the river by Shopko. So if you live in wards 11 through 21 or 24 through 29, it would be at the Crossview Church, formerly Woodlands Church. And here at the Centralia Center, it's wards 1 through 10, 22, and 23. And if you're not sure of your wards, that's all you need to do is just simply go on that government site that we mentioned or call the city clerk. They can tell you in no time at all exactly where you need to go, which place you are voting at.
All right, yes, because there is a difference, and it's no longer at a school.
Right.
That was
They
changed.
are not schools at all.
No schools anymore. So Centralia, right here, we're located really in the Centralia Center.
Right.
Come the front doors, open,
Right.
and you'll
Right there
be
in the lobby almost.
guided where you go. And then the church that you had just mentioned in the old Shopko Plaza, I call it, if people remember that back then. And pretty easy place.
And people who live in Grand Rapids, they vote at their municipal hall, Nakusa, the community hall. And a lot of the villages, smaller towns, usually a town hall.
Yeah, usually the smaller town hall, town of Port Edwards had a town hall. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Saratoga, Seneca.
The village of Port Edwards, they vote at the fire station.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
So, but if you have any questions, they can always call their
That's
clerk
right. Just call.
and know where to go.
You can check it on that Wisconsin government
That's right.
site because they've got all the information you could possibly want on there.
But I also have it here now, so they can always call me
That's
too.
right.
So, right?
You do have it
I have
here.
a lot of the information. We have a lot on our bulletin board, so if you ever visit Centralia, you're walking around here, the League of Women Voters are providing a lot of information. We have it in our office, or we have it outside our office. So we have another question to Leo. I know you mentioned a little bit about what you should take, but I just want to go over that again, what you should take when you go and vote.
Okay. For the vast majority of people, the photo ID that they will take with them is a valid Wisconsin driver's license. It doesn't have to have the correct address on it, but it needs to be current. It can't be expired. The poll workers will verify the photo to, of course, affirm that that is in fact you who is presenting it. There's a wide variety of other documents that you can provide. You can bring a passport. You can bring a Wisconsin ID card, which looks just like a driver's license, only it's obviously not giving you the privilege of operating a vehicle. You can bring a valid military ID if you're on active duty or in the Guard or Reserves and have that has your picture on it. If you're an enrolled member of a Native American tribe, you can bring your tribal ID card. You could bring a Veterans Affairs ID card. This is new. That was just added. And some college ID cards that are properly dated and contain a photo are also acceptable, but those you have to check carefully because not all educational institutions issue student IDs that meet the requirements of Wisconsin's law. So if you're a college or tech school student who is 18 and has other qualifications met, you might want to check on the website or check with your local clerk to see that a student ID, if for some reason you don't have a driver's license or a passport, is acceptable. Otherwise, you can show up expecting to use that document and be turned away. So
yeah,
good.
Exactly. If you don't have that identification, they can deny you to vote.
That's correct. That's correct. That's according to the new law.
So just make sure, this is different than it has been in the past, but they seem to, there's always a lot of changes, and that's why it's good to inform yourself really almost every voting time.
Correct.
I think it's very beneficial. Well, Gloria, let's sum this all up here of what we learned today over the last 30 minutes. I think there was a lot of information. You guys can always rewatch this program. We will be running it all month, or online at WisconsinRapidsCommunityMedia.com. So go ahead, Gloria. Let's just sum up what we talked about.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. It's a pleasure to be able to do this, and it's so important to say to our citizens and the public to stay informed. You have so many avenues in which to register to vote, to get the information. Use them, utilize them. The city clerk, Paul Shabilsky, has staff, himself as well included, are very accommodating and will be more than happy to answer your questions if you're not an internet user and you don't want to go to the website necessarily. Our county clerk, Cindy Siepers, the very same thing. She's on the first floor at the Wood County building, very accessible, has a marvelous staff that works with her as well. Any of those people can, and don't be afraid to ask those questions. No question is a silly, stupid question. They aren't. You need to be involved. As Leo said earlier in the program, don't allow that small minority of people to make decisions for you. You are the voter. As a U.S. citizen, 18 years or older, you have the right to vote and you should vote. So that basically is our message, and we're just, again, very happy to be able to do this today. Tom, thank you.
I want to thank you both for coming. I really appreciate all the information. I've learned a lot.
Good.
I'm sure you viewers have learned a lot. I mean, it's all the people that we talked about that are going to be in the elections coming up in the spring. That's a lot. And
Yes, it
it's
is.
a lot to really think about after a presidential election.
I'd like to interject one final thought here. At least for local office, if you're thinking of school board, city council, town board, village board, whatever, the timing, the timeline of this is even more significant because most of these offices for local governmental spots, the window of opportunity to get your name on the ballot is the month of December.
Correct.
Basically from the first Tuesday of December to the first Tuesday of January, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. I don't have that information in front of me, but sometimes you have to file nomination papers. Sometimes it's simply a matter of sending a letter of declaration to the clerk of the school board or town board or village board or city board, or city council. It depends on the municipality. If you're thinking of doing this, if you're thinking of becoming a direct participant, not just by voting, but by standing for local elective office, then it's the middle of September. You're basically looking at a couple
8
of
weeks.
months, little more than that out, and you would be able to start the process.
Correct.
We need engaged, qualified, passionate people to help guide our municipal agencies along proper paths. Registering to vote is the key that unlocks all of that. And if you aren't registered, none of the rest of this works. But you can also not only participate as a voter, but you can participate as a candidate.
Yeah, that's very important. And I believe some of those positions in some areas are paid a little bit. I
Yes.
pretty understand. So,
Sure.
hey, it's you're probably not going in for the pay, like you say. You want to
No.
be passionate. It's very important. But it's just it's a little incentive because there are some times that,
Sure.
that you're meeting once or twice a week. And you do have to review all that stuff before you go to a meeting. But it's very important and to be an elected official. And like you say, it's coming around the corner, and you just talk to your clerk, and they can help you with getting that. I know there's certain someone have to have 100. Sometimes I think a mayor has to have 200
Right.
signatures. So I that.
And all those forms are on that government site,
Yeah.
and all that information is there as well. And it's also on the Wood County site. If you go to the homepage, go to departments, go to the county clerk, Cindy Siepert's, all of that. Same thing with Paul, with the city. All of that information is out there.
Yeah. A few years back, you guys had maybe an election training at one time. Not election training, but
Yes, how and why to run for
Yeah.
public office.
Yeah, were you thinking
yes,
of
we
doing that?
coordinated that. Yes, we're thinking about
Okay.
that. So yes, to encourage people to run for public office.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes.
That's a good piece. So, all right, well, we'll end with that. I want to thank you again, and thank you guys for watching Get to Know Your City, along with my guests here from the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin Rapids area. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you back next time on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media.